just hit the bed, and I was gone. And I never thought of it. About 10 o'clock the next morning, I tried to get up and couldn't get up. But at that time, I noticed my whole body, aqua blue again. This is a very important color because of the microtron. The whole body everything is geometric. It's the corners that seem to be so powerful. I don't know how else to explain it. Thank you, Peter, Paul, and Mary. Yes, I felt naked up here. I tried to describe these candles, and I was saying, well, all of you can see a candle. It's lit. It's nicer to look at one sometimes. Oh, my darling Brigitte. There's Brigitte. How wonderful are they? Thank you. Yes. She was my 16th wife at one time. And she came back with revenge. So coding is what the next nature of the game. Don't have any fear. You will not know what's happening with you. But this is why there will be, I only saw it when it happened to me, after I did my primary ascension, or it's a huge ascension on the September 89. And I really didn't think I had to come back. Some of you who don't like not seeing, we discussed this with some of you, not being conscious, remember you cannot rely on your senses. Your senses are a very unreliable source of information. They do not convey accurately. So some of you say that I feel or I saw. There may be certain truths, but basically it's wanting. It's not accurate. When somebody, as you are now, as one, develop your intuition and allow yourself to be the instrument that was intended, one with your God source, then you'll find that your personality leaves. That confuses many of you because you don't want to be a group personality. You want to be whoever it is you are. And sometimes, most of you don't even like yourselves, but you want to be that person anyway. It's in the Second Amendment, or the Third Amendment. Well, the Second Amendment we won't talk about. It's there somewhere. And these things are so very limiting because ultimately you are one. All of you. There are no exceptions to this. So when people say they can't see or they can't do this and they can't do that, I do alert you to a very real possibility and have no fear. There's no fear involved when it happens. The second time I remember with some detail, and I thought I'd gone to bed and I thought it was night. Kids not all there all the time. And I shut my eyes and the whole room became lit, and I got a little confused because have you ever gone to some place and you don't know whether it's day or night or morning or, all of you have, I'm sure. And I got up and I looked out the window and it was dark. And I thought, oh well. But there's a very calming energy within the room. So I went back to bed, and that fast I was gone. I didn't fight it. I knew or sensed what it might be. And I was with a friend, staying at a friend's house, And the next morning, 10 o'clock, I thought it must be time to get up. And I knew I shouldn't get up, and I could see the whole right side, 10th of May, the whole right side of my body then, not in triangles and aqua blue with both what we call the negative or the positive for the female and the positive, the male. It was just the right side. And that coating was more like dots and dashes. But in the first coating, everyone will look at it a little bit differently because they will remember parts. And I had been off in what is called a Merkaba. Merkaba is a very limiting concept to me, having done it before. But the goodly company, all of you have experienced the Merk that we used to come in from Venus with. You've been around a long time, all of you. Bless your hearts. I'm glad I have somebody to talk to. It gets very lonely sometimes. Especially having greater age than most of you. I can remember in the 50s being in London and having these thoughts. Can you imagine? You're a lunatic. And I saw wars. I walked through France from Mons in Belgium through Lille, and that, of course, was all farmers plowing around the steel pots, the British Tommies and the Canadians, I guess, and the German helmets. Very reverent in those days. They didn't just plow through everything. So these steel pots are everywhere. And I had deja vu, and I thought I was going nuts because I saw a war that had been fought many years earlier, 10 years earlier, I would imagine. So, look to this happening with all of you, and it will, the minute you allow yourself, resign to the plan, resign to the all that is, resign to the God plan that says you are one with all that is, then amazing things happen. The things that, well, we have free will on planet Earth, and you find that you don't need it. Excuse me. Greatest surprise of all is how well you survive at turning your free will over to your own hierarchy, to your own I am. That's the gesture you invariably make. And then you have much more free will, tuned in, focused, as one, than you ever did fooling around with a personality that really doesn't know what it wants. It's the point that I want you all to think about. Personality, I function with about 6% because I think that's the absolute minimum that you can stay in your physical body with. Is about 6% personality. And welcome the totality of who you are to resonate as the I am. Again, I repeat, we're not talking about the I am that is rather limiting the germane I am. It was a wonderful teaching at the time. A lot of teachings were wonderful at the time. Some of them weren't. We'll not go into that. So the 10th of May, I came back. It was about 10 o'clock in the morning. So I'd been gone 13 hours. And I thought, oh God, I can't get up. And this whole right side of my body is just dot, dash, dot, 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 dash. And then I could see the few of the 5-sided Oh, we have some wonderful visitors there. Of the, no, you got it wrong. No. Of the, murk. And it appears in the body, Merkaba, Macambra, as five-sided. And I could see this being coded. Some of you will see it as triangles, some of it will you see it as dots and dashes, some of it will you see as light, but they're all geometric. All geometric, except for these funny dots and dashes on the right side of my body, all in aqua blue. Now this doesn't mean definitively you haven't done it if it doesn't come through the way I'm describing it. Because no two DNAs function the same. They can't. It was not intended that that be so. Your experiences are all so very different, and there's no two on earth who have identical DNAs. And now that we've found out that we're junk. Good to know. When you really get into it, our scientists have been so accurate about so many things, calling us junk. It's a form of imprisonment, isn't it? How do you control people? Well, tell them they're junk. Give them 2 strands of DNA to work with. Have Brian tell them they've got 3. And that they're going to have 12. Can you see how funny we must be to the scientists? The finite scientist, of course, has always been right, hasn't he? So when this happens with you, and I tell you as you allow yourself to become, this will happen more, and more with all of you. And more rapidly than you would ever believe possible. Much more rapidly now. And why? For a number of things we've been able to anchor the microtron, the spiritual energy, which has been so confusing on this planet. Everything was spiritual. You had a spiritual hierarchy. You had all these very nice men, whom I know many of them, as I know all of them. They're big frogs in a little pond. So they call themselves Lord Katumi, Lord Maitreya, Lord this one, and Lord that one. You must realize, gentle children, that there's not one among you who's working with light that's less than any of these things. It's that disempowerment that I speak of for the last 250,000 years. It's a big one, because your worthiness is pretty big, isn't it? Yeah, but he could make fish out of nothing, and this one can make emeralds and pass them to you. What can I do? You'll do exactly what you're programmed to do. And that is create the light body and the spiritual light body. The feminine principle of existence is what happened on the 10th of May with me, and nothing has been the same since. It wasn't easy to anchor. It's very difficult on my body. She was. I mean, she beat me up so bad. And what I found so interesting is it came in the dynamic. The second time it came into the dynamic half, what we refer to as the dynamic side of the body, the right side. Powerful coding. Extremely powerful. Extremely powerful. All of you are anchoring this energy. You cannot have 100 go into the 5th dimension and then 160 touch into the 6th dimension without having a profound effect on all of you. Those are the old things. That's how it happens. It doesn't make you less than the one that did it. It just means that they were programmed differently for whatever reason. but you're so far up into the front runners that you will become the teachers in the next few years. This is much more rapid. I say few years, I mean 2 years. Your changes are unbelievably rapid. And how pleasant it is that we can finally do the job ourselves without assistance from this council or that council or the elders coming in to bail us out. The elders should have not sent. Let me start differently. The biggest mistake we made in the last 2,000 years was to crucify Jesus. And Peter didn't like it very much either. Or Paul. Or Peter's wife. So we adore adoring those who suffer. And we've been told the biggest bill of good of all, that God did this to save us. I want you to ask yourself one question. What if Jesus hadn't been crucified? How creative would Augustine, Constantine, Jerome, what would they have created? They would have created something. And that's what we're doing. We don't need the elders coming in. I hope we don't anyway. We may need the Space Command. There are many, many Space Commands, many, many of them. Some of them you perceive as good and some of them you perceive as evil. Let me just say this, that if the grave which we speak of, nod your head, yes we do. If they had been as dark as is indicated, yes, they are working principally with the American government on a spacecraft. Yes, I will write a book about it. But they feed on the energy you give them. If these graves wish to shut down this planet, or have the authority to do so, all they have to do is create a frequency that shuts off all your computers. Those who are in business, imagine, or those who have bank accounts, imagine. If you want chaos, you don't create a Michelangelo virus. No. You hit the big banks. You hit everything. You don't need an earthquake. Japan doesn't have to go, as it's been forecast. This West Coast won't go. As long as a few of you keep doing what we did so wonderfully in Santa Rosa. Nice part. That's where Peter's from. Nice part of the world. I even had some wine. It was very good. I didn't get a headache. So if the room happens to light up, don't panic. Go back to bed. You become very, very calm. It could happen when you're asleep, but I assure you it will happen. Because this is the new nature of teaching, is to code. And for every one of you that's in this room, there are literally thousands who are overseen with love, hope. Their whole modus operandi, their whole beingness is rather dependent on this bottleneck called Earth. We have the three lower astrals not functioning anymore, so you still have about close to 7 billion souls between the astral and the physical. We're going around and around and around in circles. Many wishing to come back in, all of them wishing to come back in. But the vibration of Earth now is so hastened, so vibrant, that it's not a place any longer that most beings can stay in. Those are the ones that you will help. And the time will be known, you will know it. The intuition is the most powerful vehicle that you have. And as you open this cosmic heart, you will marvel at how much universal information you receive. And as you touch into the spiritual realm, what we call the monad, you will notice the DNA changing again as it literally spiritualizes matter. You need the 10th ray with that, and we will go into some of that as you become coded. Everything is on a law of resonance. You understand it? Physics is a law of resonance. The highest vibration in the room always carries the lowest. The lowest ceases to be lowest. If you can go higher and lower on these, you're all divine from a source perspective. Every one of us vibrates at a different frequency. And the frequency gets very, very high now, and it gets very, very uncomfortable for a body that was never designed to look at the sixth dimension. Not this body. At all times in the past, the only area we could begin to look at, was the beginning of the fourth dimension. First, second, third, grand divisions of the fourth dimension. Now you'll start to look at the fifth. Because it's here. Because the opening has been made. And the sixth, then you realize that those numbers that I spoke of this morning, to the power of a 160 or to the power of 400, become a reality. That you are the profound creators of what happens on this planet, because you were designed that way. Your coding is justifiably one of light, one of love, for all is love. There's nothing else that's in existence as persuasive as light. What is all it is? Love. And it's not the love that we know. We know a composite type of love that's very emotional. Has nothing to do with the emotional body. As we develop the thymus room, you will feel greater expansion of those things, those areas that are normally not tolerated by you. And I say this, the personality Brian does, with a grain of salt, because he finds it very difficult to live in a third dimensional atmosphere. And it doesn't matter how much I love this family or that family, it's very, very difficult for me. So I live in my silence room quite a bit as I'm talking, going, really? The dog did what to the carpet? Oh, no. Oh. Susan hit Grandma with what? Oh. The fireplace. Oh. Is she all right? Oh, I'm so relieved. We all live those lives, day in and day out. And with the goddess arriving, and you being some of the few on earth who know of her arrival, you will have to rely on your inner I am, on your balanced polarities, because the seeming vibration, I'm delighted, incidentally, again, I'll mention the number of males that are here, because we can't do this without male energy, is that we have to look now at families who are all vibrating at different frequencies. And boy, you really need to live in the thymus then, because generally speaking, women are of a higher vibration than the men are. Because of the receptive qualities. Do you understand this? And they're nurturing that nature. The male will come around, he's a little bit dogged, but it'll be wonderful when he does. And it's happening. It's very slow. So you have two vibrations. You have the vibration of the provider. Well, how are you, hon? Are you a little late, David? Who, me? Shit, you don't know how hard I work. But you're 3 hours late, David. What's the matter with you? You know, on. We won't do it. We could have a whole afternoon. And we might sometime. On poor David. Have you been drinking, Dave? Who, me? Shit, what are you asking me for? I just saw some of the boys down at the bar and it was business. How do you think I feed you? Kids. Where are they? Aren't they up to meet their dad? No, they've gone to bed. And on, the vibrations just do not balance. So to become, everyone knows this one, so that you don't become dysfunctional, how lovely that you can fall back into your own androgynous self for security, release and trust, and know that you can live a life that's abundant and full within oneself, and still live in this outer self, this illusion. The more I see of life, the more I realize that this outer world that all of you function in for the time being is totally illusionary. And it was designed that way. This little piece in the now, this 250,000 years, it worked very well, and you all became slaves. Some of you loved being slaves because you didn't know there was anything else that could happen to you. Slavery is a tough word. Free will. But I have free will. How much free will do you really think you have? You could have had quite a bit, but who governs you? Is there a level of government? I understand that you have 64 times more lawyers per capita than any other country in the world. Who runs the country? God? Who runs the country? If a lawyer is unemployed, what's the best thing for a lawyer to do? Is to create a job. And that is with our whole modus operandi. We create and give to others our power. And sometimes we give our power, more often than not, to those that don't deserve it or need it. The power should be with their own I am, their own presence, their own self. And it needn't be ugly if you've got a loved one who's not vibrationally on the frequency that you are. You can still be compatible, I think. It's tough though, isn't it? I see it wherever I go in the world, and it's a heavy burden. So look to that journey. All of you will experience, whether you experience consciously or not. You'll know there's been a sudden shift within the DNA. And the cells feel different. They feel more and more vibrant. You feel the body vibrating at a much, much higher rate than it did previously. None of you could be in this room 2 years ago. Your body wouldn't handle it. This is how accelerated this day and age is. We've left the discs up here, and there's a reason for it, I think. We really want to get used to these power centers. They are your power centers. The 12 chakras are representative of all universes in this cosmic day, of which there are 43.